Well, hello everyone. Good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to Space Tour's 47th Insights Live. And we're very honoured to be joined by some guest speakers today. And today's title is Keeping It Simple, about designing a workplace experience. So we're going to investigate that. We'll do some introductions first of all. Maybe Tanisha, could you give us your background, bio?
Yes, I'm Tanisha Krishnan, and I'm the Associate Director of the Workplace Strategy team at BNP Paribas Real Estate. I'm an architect by background, and I've moved to workplace strategy and change management a little over 6 years now. So I've been helping clients right from understanding what activity-based working is, basically what we spoke about, then moving to navigating the world of new ways of working, and now more on how can we enhance performance and build employee experience. So with clients from different sectors, so everyone from financial to pharmacy to universities, working different industries.
Great variety there.
Yeah.
Superb. Good. And Julie.
So I'm Julie Degnan. I'm the practice lead at CBRE for Furniture Advisory Services. We're a 10-year-old line of business that focuses on the tender process for our clients, whether that be a single location, multinational, or global. And we also work with our clients to develop and build a furniture management and tracking program into what's happening with their furniture on a national or global level.
Coming all the way to London to join us.
Excited to be here.
Appreciate it. And Carlos.
I am Carlos Posada. I'm a principal at Gensler in London. Been with Gensler 22 years now. This is my third market at Gensler. I started my career in Washington, D.C., then Los Angeles, and now London. I co-lead the professional service firm's practice area for the firm, focusing on management consulting, accounting firms, legal, workplace. But I also do quite a bit of work on financial services firms, having come from Los Angeles, did my share of media and tech companies and even consumer goods. So happy to be here.
Brilliant. And thank you again for joining us.
Absolutely.
That spread of client segments is always adds insight and depth. Russell.
Thanks, Nick. So I'm Russell Kingston, and I'm the Managing Director for Space Tour US, looking after all our business operation in the US side of the business. Really excited to talk about this topic and keen to hear what our panelists have got to tell us. With looking at an experience that comes naturally through keeping it simple is something which I think takes great care and a lot of research to dig into. And I get something we'd add as well for the audience here is that we want to hear from you throughout this conversation. So please put your questions in the chat and we'll look forward to answering them as we go through.
Certainly. Good. And I'm Nick Baxter, UK MD for Space Tour. And we'll, without further ado, we'll get into the discussion. So keeping it simple, designing an experience that comes naturally. So we start off with what does that mean for our workplace professional guests? Tanisha, do you want to kick off and expand on what you think that means?
So basically what it means for me and from the experience that I've had is any space that you design, we need to basically design it for the end user. So whoever's going to use it, it needs to be simple for them. So when we were having our discussion before, it was about how technology is supposed to make life easy for us. We all struggle to connect into our meeting rooms when we go in, and that's been the bane of everyone's life since we've started going back into the offices. So if we want people to actually interact with space, it needs to work for them. And the entire concept, at least for us, is how do we involve them in this journey so we understand what their needs are, how they work, what works for them, what doesn't actually work for them, what makes them more productive in this space. So that when they come in, rather than it being a friction-filled experience, how can it be smoothest for them when they're in? Because they're making the effort of commuting and traveling those long hours. Let's make it worth their time. And that's basically what a lot of organizations have been struggling with is, okay, how do we get people back more in? And people just don't feel that they can be as productive in the office as they can be at home. And literally this morning I've been having, so with one of our clients, we're in the interview phase where we're talking to different leaders. And it's so strange that the leaders themselves have been telling me that our workers are so much more productive at home when as compared to when in the office. So a lot of them, they have days in the office on a Monday, have to pre-plan on a Sunday. So they dial in, work a few hours because they know when they're going to come in on a Monday, it's going to be distraction free and they're not going to be able to do what they have to do. So how can we actually design spaces that work for these people? Because it's not worth working on a Sunday evening when you should be being with your family. So for me, it's more about how can we create spaces that are frictionless for people to use.
Yeah, and you've touched on a couple of things there, which are very interesting. The commute-worthy workspace, but also the comparison now with the work from home is not exactly comparing one workspace to another anymore. It's comparison with home. Julie, be glad of your thoughts on this one. Headline.
So my thoughts on keeping it simple is that on an enterprise level, what our clients are asking for is simplicity in the process. So the process as it exists right now is very fractured in terms of how it is approached and how data is being managed. And so what we are finding is from a global level, it's gotten simpler in the sense that we recognize that pain points for clients when it comes to furniture are global rather than region specific. It's not tied to product, it's about the whole process. And what we find is that our clients are saying to us today, we want risk mitigation. We want to understand the role of the dealer and manufacturer and how they are able to help us to mitigate our risk. We're looking for data on performance, on spend, on sustainability, on diversity. We're looking for it to be more centralized, and we're looking to be more inclusive, and we are looking to raise the expectations in terms of quality. So we're seeing more clients really start to put some weight behind true sustainability data and understanding what that means to them, really understanding diversity spend, what does that mean to them, and being able to track and report on that. Where are we at risk, and what are we able to do to mitigate that, and centralizing it in a way that the whole furniture process is simpler.
That's great. Yep, and of course.
These are all such great points. I think that the simplicity is in how the end user is going to perceive their experience. I get that. But I think the process in and of itself is not simple. I think we've all agreed to that. There's a lot of data out there. In fact, we collect a lot of data. We do a lot of research at Gensler to truly try to understand what the office has to offer to the end users and to businesses and to the culture of the business. And I think it's important to create that connection of that experience. You mentioned, making the commute worthwhile, really understanding the value of integrating diversity or wellness and sustainability within the workplace. But to me, it's all about also ultimately building culture. Some of our research does suggest that even during the pandemic, a lot of the firms struggle with continuing with their culture. So if employees don't have a sense of opportunity or a sense of learning, a sense of being mentored, I think they begin to lose interest within organizations. So I think the simplicity of the experience need to be connected to that sense of culture and the quality of the work. At the end of the day, the fight for talent has not gone away.
No.
And so we got to pay attention to those things.
Yeah, that's a point that's been made many times on our Insight series, that then employment demand may go up and down, and it does in business cycles, but the fight for talent, the war for talent, top talent is always there. It's always in high demand. And environments and attractive workspaces worthy of the commute, whatever effort it takes to get in there. And however frictionful or friction-free the experience is really critical.
Agreed. And creating a culture of innovation. I think that our research is also supporting that the companies that pay attention to things you mentioned, Julie, like sustainability, inclusivity, and wellness, these are companies that are probably going to be higher on the index of innovation, which is at the end of the day going to attract more talent.
Yeah, and when we were talking prior to this, you made a really great point that actually it's hard to make it simple. And then I was just thinking about that thing where someone comes into a space or uses a product and it just feels right. They can't necessarily put their finger on why. Getting that to work is a difficult process. Just open up on what you're saying around that some more.
Well, I think that one of the things that makes it complex, I think you touched upon the technology, or you talked about sustainability and all the factors that we need to now layer onto a space. Flexibility being one of them. In fact, there are technologies that are yet to be invented that we know are going to be affecting the way we work. I know everybody's tired of hearing about artificial intelligence, but I do believe that very quickly it's going to change the way we work, we deliver work, the way our clients work and deliver business. So what are we doing to keep it simple enough that any of those big factor influences can be woven into future use? And that's not an easy thing to really tackle. So therein lies the conundrum, I think, for where we are. We're at such a pivotal and transitional point. We're coming off of a pandemic. We're trying to still grapple with the idea, what's best? Is flexibility best? Is people at the office best? Is everybody at home? The debate goes on. And then on top of that, you layer future technology. It's a complex issue.
Yeah.
And just to add on Carlos's point about the complexity, it's in addition to everything that he said, it's also that people come in for different needs to the office. So you're trying to meet a lot of different requirements and ways of working in one space.
Yeah.
So understanding what these needs are, what are people's priorities, why they're coming in, what do they need when they're in, is going to differ not only team to team, but it's also going to differ generation-wise. It's going to differ personal and individual requirements-wise. We're talking about everything from inclusivity to diversity. All these needs need to be looked at in a holistic form to come up with a solution, which is by no means an easy feat. And also after you do that, you're still probably going to end up leaving some section of the population not still feeling satisfied with the way the space has turned out. So yes, it is about trying to make the spaces as simple as possible so that they know how to use it. It comes to them very naturally rather than being given a manual on this is the desk you use for this activity and you use this meeting room for this activity. So they should just be able to do it. But coming up with that right solution is the most complex part of the whole process.
So getting at what's best, even if it's not exactly right, but what's best. We believe, I think, that a multiplicity of work types, work settings, is a good starting point. Then to be able to flex and reconfigure them. But then also there's a question of counting or monitoring space use, occupancy, which is quite complex as well, because that can raise certain worries. But it's trying to extract data from a working live environment. Any views, Julie, on how do you monitor and arrive at what's best?
So we support our clients more on in working in tandem with the design firm on really helping them to collect data on what are those options and how they want to evaluate them. We're trying to take more of the subjectivity out of it and have it be more data driven.
Yes.
And so the design firm and our clients would take the lead on that, and then we are putting in tools to help them best extract that feedback. I am curious, when you talk about these new experiences that you create, how often are you creating these new experiences, collecting that user feedback, and then making modifications once the space has already been? Are you noticing an uptick in that?
So basically, it's been, I don't know if Carlos would agree, but it's been quite a journey getting organizations to buy into this concept of post-occupancy evaluation, and also getting them to understand that we cannot find a solution in one go. This needs to be an iterative process. So a lot of them now have started adopting the concept of pilots. So rather than investing in a complete new building or a complete large floor, they will test it on smaller scales, which then are used to collect all the data that you need on, let's put in 5 different furniture types. Let's see what's being used, how they're being used, collect feedback on it, and then see what we can take with us when we go ahead. Because no one has the money right now to be spending millions on redoing up a whole place and not knowing what's actually going to work. So it has been quite the journey to bring them to understand that let's do post-occupancy evaluation as a goal once you've done this, because that is still not your final solution, because people keep changing. Ways of working, like Carlos said, have just changed immensely over the last 3 years. So we're not in a stage where we're in a final and this can be your ultimate solution. We're constantly learning. So let's first do it on a smaller scale. Let's pilot it. Let's get you comfortable with these solutions, test, monitor, and see what needs to change. And then when you eventually do put in the solution, it still needs monitoring and changing. So with the client we're working right now, we've been driving this message so hard with the project team for them to understand, guys, we're working on this. Yes. Also, we're collecting all the data now. Maybe 6 months down the line, one of your senior leaders will turn around and say, we want everyone back in. So remember, this needs to be a process of a lot of iteration. And that's how we're going to only keep getting better at the way we work.
Yeah, I agree. I think selling the idea to clients to a certain degree always be in beta mode. You're exploring, right? We're not in the business of selling, ta-da, here's your solution, it's done. No, because the design is it's for the end user and is being co-created with them.
Yes.
And taking that live information and learning from the end user is invaluable. In many ways, I think that connects back to the idea of flexibility with the architecture and within the furniture, and an element of hackability. Let the end user decide, the designers or the furniture dealers or whomever thought that this would be good for me, but let me hack the space and play around with it to satisfy my needs. And I think learning from that process or building that in becomes relevant.
That's a really interesting one, actually, because I was thinking about it when you were talking about the rapidly evolving technology. And how do you future-proof a space? And technology is rapidly evolving. Organizations evolve. So that kind of point is always in beta mode, isn't it? In our own houses, we think about that kind of natural feel. We're constantly evolving, don't we?
Yes. Don't build anything.
Honestly, I'm always messing with ours anyway. You're always changing something around.
The idea of building in all the technology that's designed, we all quickly understood. Even a flat screen television kept evolving and changing and getting bigger and thinner. And so I think that letting the space kind of cohabitate with that technology in a sophisticated manner still is one of the secrets. And I think piloting ideas is quite brilliant. And we've been selling those concepts to clients quite a bit. They don't want to invest in 300,000 square foot of an idea if it's not going to map out. But you could build it. You could get feedback from people and feedback from what's the latest and greatest on technology, and make sure that it's allowed to have some latitude for changes. Yeah.
And apart from just the whole investment point of view, also from like a people change perspective, the concept works really well, because people are not scared then that I'm going to be taken into this brand new shiny space and I just don't know how it works. But they've tried it, tested it, they know what they like or have used the most of is going to be replicated somewhere else.
And contributed feedback that helped steer the process.
And they have been a part of the entire journey. So in a way, they feel like they've been the ones responsible for coming up with the solution, which always works from a change management perspective.
It's a really interesting question that just come in that links back to that point we're talking about post-occupancy and saying once you've taken your data, you've designed the space, you've gone in, how do you actually measure success? What data tells you that you've got it right this time?
I think it is, because it really depends from organization to organization on what they're wanting to measure. So for some organizations, it may be increased attendance is one of their performance metrics that they want to measure against. So it is attendance, and let's see how many people are actually using the space. Whereas for some other organizations, it would be productivity, because, for example, we're working with an organization that has a huge call center-based population. For them, they've got very defined performance metrics, and then we come in and see, by being in the office, has that impacted anything, and then measure it against that. It could be, I don't know, just basic engagement. How engaged are your employees? And all organizations have engagement surveys, and they will do them quarterly, sometimes once in 6 months. And those scores also are used very often to measure how well the space is performing. So
Breakdown of silos is another one. A lot of
Yes.
companies
That's an interesting
set out to
Yes.
break down silos. That can be measured.
So it's about identifying the objectives.
You have to.
Upfront,
Yes.
and then measuring back strictly against those.
Pre-occupancy survey, post-occupancy
Yeah.
surveys. You have to understand what are those KPIs, what are those targets that we're trying to change, and then you can measure if the new design accomplished that.
And it's very important to do that, because only then do you as a team, do they as a team, because we always work alongside a project team that's internally based, will know whether or not we've reached any kind of success, is first co-creating that list of KPIs that they agree, that their leadership have bought into. So then everyone is on the same page when the process is not complete, but at least has passed the stage that we were working towards.
Because you need the buy-in from people,
Yes.
absolutely.
So when you do a pilot in an existing space and you collect that feedback and data, and then the solution is arrived at and you go to the new environment and you've got all the design elements and architectural elements that support that new way of working, does the feedback that you got on the pilot, does it still align with what happened once they relocated, or is there some change in that data now that it is being put into its full use?
It's an interesting one.
I'm going to say yes and no.
Okay.
So because what has happened is when the pilots are done, they're done at a smaller scale. You rotate people through it for smaller periods of time. You obviously build in the feedback that they've given you, and then you redesign the whole new space. When you go into the whole new space, again, it is about getting everyone accustomed to the additional settings that have come in, because you're not going to replicate exactly what you did. You'll replicate a few of the settings, but there'll be a few more things that they're going to have to get used to, learn how to use for different activity types. And so then you monitor and then get that feedback from the new space. And again, that needs to be an iterative process. But just because you did a pilot and you've replicated the settings doesn't mean it will work, because again, a pilot would run, let's say, 6 months. Okay, it will take time then for them to redesign and do up the new space. Sometimes takes, so it depends on what size you're talking about. Usually it will take around a couple of months to find the new space, to design it, fit it out, and for people to move in would have been a year.
Right.
During that time, things will change.
Yeah.
So
Got
we
it.
just need to be very sensitive that no solution can be the ultimate final solution. It has to be a journey where we explore things differently.
Right.
And obviously certain things do much better, even when you've done because you would have piloted it, you've tested it. So for example, with one of the financial sector organizations we were working with, none of the partner level people wanted to come out of offices. So we piloted testing, getting them out of the offices, giving them semi-private spaces that they could work in. And now they're going to redesign this in their new office that they're going to build in 2027. So at that point of time, we'll know how well this is working. But what has happened is we are now making them comfortable to get outside their offices.
It's a twofold thing. You find out things doing a pilot about what works best or doesn't work best, or easy fixes, right? Based on feedback from people that are using the pilot. I think the more powerful tool is that the pilot is a change management tool.
Okay.
It's getting people used to, this is a business decision, we're going to go in this direction. And that's where the buy-in comes in, right? They physically see it, and it's not a shock when they move into it's baby steps of sorts.
Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And then feel like they had a say, like,
Yes.
okay, can you make this furniture like this, or can you move that wall that way?
And that's kind of what makes the process natural.
Yeah.
Yes.
It does.
Iterative, step at a time.
Yeah, so it feels simple.
Thrown in the deep end.
It's probably not simple to get there at all,
No.
but it feels simple and natural.
For them specifically, because they've tested it, tried it. So when you go, you don't need a manual to work the space.
There's another question that's come in here that kind of plays to this, and that's what examples of best practice have we found around involving employees in the design process and getting buy-in at every level? I guess that kind of segues off from what we're talking about here. Make sure you kick off first.
Can you repeat the question?
So what examples of best practice have you found around involving employees in getting in the design process and getting buy-in at every level?
So what is best practice that we have experienced is multiple things. So obviously focus groups is one way that everyone would go for, because that's the one space that you can tackle different levels of an organization, bring different groups together that actually work or have similar work profiles, and they can share what works for them and what doesn't work for them. there's another one that a lot of design-oriented organizations strictly would put up live feedback walls, so that they would have taken them through different concepts, different ways of working, different types of settings, and then put up live walls on what works, what doesn't work. Give us your feedback on it. There was one other organization we worked for, and in terms of a post occupancy, they put up QR codes all over the different settings. And so you go scan the QR code and give live feedback back on what works, like what is working, what's not working. Maybe the IT isn't working. And when these things are very quickly fixed, it really makes employees feel like they've been listened to, and it kind of just builds up the engagement within the population. And then in terms of, and then it was, what else do we do to get employee buy-in, right? Or was it at all different levels? And at different levels, so if we're talking about right from the CLT, we need to start with creating a vision on where do they think the business is going. Because if they feel like we understand where the business is going, they know that the solution we're coming up with aligns with what they want. And then it's about the lower level management, because usually what we've noticed is all CLT are very tight. They work very closely together. The layers below are more siloed and they do their own things. And it's quite difficult for them to see that happening below. And so it is, how can we make all of these people start talking to each other, which sometimes becomes the most difficult thing. So I think that is where the biggest task is how do we break the silos down? How do we actually get people to come together? And in that context, when we've had conversations in focus groups with employees, for example, they always talk about community spaces that actually bring people together. It can just be your coffee points where I've bumped into someone I didn't know, or there was someone that had a presentation the other day, explained something about their business line. Another very interesting thing that a lot of organizations have now started to adopt is random coffees. So they get linked with random people across the organization, so you can start talking to them and find out what they do, which is actually, we are doing it ourselves, and we're getting such positive feedback. Because, for example, one of the interns got paired up with our CEO. He thought he won the lottery ticket because he basically got to come in and have a chat with him. And it's simple things like this that actually, if you realize that it's working, you do more of it so that you can get buy-in at different levels.
Very interesting. Any other feedback on this one?
Things that I've done that have worked quite well is most big projects have a design committee, right? And they're going to make a lot of the decisions. But when it comes to disseminating that and get the buy-in from the larger population, unveiling at each phase of the project, schematic design or Reba Stage 2 concept design, as it's called in London, unveiling that at a town hall type meeting, where the chiefs invite the designers to present where we are to everybody, allowing them to, even at times, I've had a project where we narrowed down the palette of materials, the concept palette, down to 2. And there was one that was the preferred one by the design group and the committee and the chiefs and chief of real estate or the chief of operations, whatever that might be. But they put it for a vote for everybody, right? So everybody got to vote with their phone which one was their preferred. I'm not going to confess whether the one that got the most votes was the one they ended up using, but at least there's this illusion that, I'm being asked, I'm being a part of this. It was unveiled before it was completed. So people need to have the understanding that in some way they're part of it. So town hall meetings, submitting certain things for surveys or voting are 2 things that I've used in the past successfully.
So consulting and listening and demonstrating that we're listening, it's really important. Any adds to that, Julie?
I don't know. That was really interesting, actually.
Yeah, very.
I mean, one question that's in my mind, actually, thinking about the space that comes naturally, is there's been this whole trend to kind of bring the home into work. We touched on this in the pre-discussion, but this is a really interesting topic. Interested to know your thoughts here, because we're seeing a few trends going on there. Kick off for us, Tanisha. You spoke about this.
Yes, I think we're now at a stage when it isn't going that way, where I think a lot of organizations have realized that replicating home in an office is not going to work, because your home setting is so much better, so much more comfortable. If you have to go to a very similar space, why are you going to make the travel? And there was a report that I was reading a few weeks ago, which spoke so wonderfully about the fact about how the reason you go to a hotel is not because you don't have a bed at home or you don't have a shower in your home, but it's because of the amazing pressure that you get, how clean your hotel rooms are. It's the whole experience. So how can we create offices where people actually want to come back to because there's something that you don't get at home? So if you replicate what your home has, why you're making the journey, why you're coming in. And I found that like so interesting that we never look at the hotels like that. And especially now, the concept of hoteling or making offices like hotels is looked at in a very negative light. And this spoke about it so differently. It was more about the experience. Why would you go back? You go back, exactly. You go back because of the clean sheets. You go back because of the nice smell. You go back for the powerful showers. You go back for those little things that you don't so easily get at home. So what are the little things that we're willing to do within the office that actually bring people back in? So there has been like a lot of the organizations we've been speaking to have been moving really further away from let's create home in the office. It's let's create those little things in the office that are different at home.
Yeah, and adding to that, also the amenities plays a key role, right? We haven't talked about that yet, but most big companies and small companies alike are trying to amenitize the office and provide certain offers to their employees, those little things that you mentioned, that they can't get at home. And also the idea of treating their employees as consumers, right? If they have an amazing experience in the coffee shop down the street, why can't they have a similar experience within their office? Those things they cannot get at home. But as everything and every trend evolves, the interesting part about that to me is, and I agree with you that replicating Resi, it's not necessarily the solution anymore. The amenities conversation is happening, but at the same time, cities are cautioning the large end users. I mean, it's happening in London. Some of the larger projects are so rich with amenities, restaurants, cafes, gyms, that nobody's using what's around them. And so parts of the city are dying because you have a massive complex with, 5,000 employees, 6,000 employees that are not using any of the coffee shops at street level. They're not using the facilities that are available to them. So the conversation on amenities is also evolving as we speak. And so integration with the community around is a big thing that needs to be considered for that simple experience for the end user. I'm tying it back to the original subject.
Yeah, that's good.
It's interesting. We saw a huge uptick in design firms and dealers pre-pandemic putting forward residential brands in order to create sort of that resi-mercial look. And post-pandemic, we've seen a decline, not in a decline in the need for that residential feel, but I think that gap is now being filled with commercial grade manufacturers that have moved squarely into that resi-mercial lane, and you get the contract quality with the warranty, with the predictability, with the logistics. And so we're seeing a reduction in those residential lines, which from what we say to our clients carry risk when it comes to the office environment. And so we're happy to see that pendulum begin to swing more into the commercial furniture market. Are you guys seeing the same?
Yes. Yep. Like, and also I think to add to both of the things that both of you said is the relationship of larger organizations with the communities is really significantly changing. One, because of CSR, so everything that they have to do from a social value perspective, but also the fact that everything is so expensive for them is they're trying to find areas that can support these additional amenities. So whether it's the gym, exactly, so you don't have to build a gym, but you've got a gym very close by and they can help you get subsidized gym membership there, which, and it's becoming such a holistic and good conversation to have with these people, because it's not, okay, let's get a 100% gym within our space, which ultimately 2 people will use on any given day, but what's in the locality. And it's becoming so interesting because we're having to study the areas in which they want to be having their spaces, especially the bigger organizations. Like they really want to know more about the community in and around them. How can they impact the community? What differences can they make? How can they bring that social value aspect within their own agendas? Because each one of them now has a very clear target to meet. So it's helping build the bigger picture rather than now just still remaining within our little bubble of this is what we need.
You serve the staff, the colleagues, the team, but also become a local benefactor.
Exactly.
Help the locale.
So the whole question around kind of creating connection is actually multifaceted.
Yes,
It's not just
100%.
we touched on before, didn't we, about the values of the organisation being so important, how they connect with the team, but then it's also widening out into that
Bigger picture.
beyond the borders of the building. Right?
And also, I think the good or the bad thing, or however we want to look at it, I think by 2025, correct me if anyone knows this and I'm wrong, I think 25% of the population is going to be Gen Z, 25% of your working population is going to be Gen Z. And almost 1 in 3 of them have said that they are willing to leave jobs or not take up jobs if they don't meet their own purpose. And so organizations with strong purposes and strong values of connecting and doing something for the greater good are going to be the top players, especially when it comes in the war of talent, to attract the right people.
So this is interesting. Here's another question that's come in: is how do you balance immersing my employees in the brand with the design intent? And it's not. I'll sort of add values in here as well, because that's a tricky one, isn't it? You want it. It needs to be identifiable as the company you work for, but you also need a design intent and a space that is comfortable and feels right. Just speak to this one. Throw it out there. Go on, Carlos. You kick off for us.
So the question is about how do you integrate the brand into the design?
Is balancing immersing the employees in the brand versus the design intent.
Well, presumably there's going to be an alignment between the design intent and the brand. So I think that the first thing you need to do is understand your client's brand. What are the sort of key aspects from the brand that can be manifested in a physical manner, in a physical environment? What other aspects can support the brand in that sense? And then circling back to the employees, I don't think it's a stretch or a difficult ask to create that connection with the employees, because one could also assume that people that are working for these larger organizations, and I think we mentioned it earlier, there is already an intuitive connection to that brand. They're there for a reason. Particularly you mentioned the young generations. We do have research that supports that salary is not the number one reason why the young people are joining an organization. Values is. So Gen Z is looking for an organization when they have multiple offers of employment. They'll select an organization that they can relate to in terms of that brand, of what they represent for the community, how are they making a difference for the environment, how are they being inclusive. So it's those things that the employees are looking for. So I think our job is connecting the aspirational brand to the physical environment and ensuring that that is represented, ensuring that that is supporting, that that is enhancing, it's allowing the ability for them to reach out to the community, to feel included, all of those things. That's my answer.
From my aspect, I think brand means so many things. So the brand of an organization could be training and mentoring. It's what are the type of spaces that they're willing to invest in to actually put that forward and make people feel like they're part of the community, they're being looked after, that there is growth within their career that they're being provided for. And so apart from everything that Carlos has said, it is actually defining what brand does the organization want their employees to feel when they're in the space, and then accordingly cater to those needs. So it's very much now it's become much less about the colors and the posters and the logos everywhere. Exactly. It's more about the experience that you want them to feel when they come in. So whether it's having a workplace experience manager that actually deals with everything that you have to do for the day, because your brand is making people feel welcome, comfortable, and have the most frictionless experience when they come in. How do you create that?
It's that subliminal message.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very interesting. We another piece actually that came up as we were speaking before, Julie, which I think is good to touch on as well. It's a slight segue here, but just you're speaking about how organisations now are looking at in-region manufacturing, looking in supporting in-region sourcing. Just open up on that point. I think it's a really interesting way that the industry, if you like, and the way people look at the design of buildings is evolving.
Yeah, I think they're looking at in-region sourcing, which can be regional suppliers, and it can be global suppliers that have in-region capabilities. So understanding from a global perspective, what manufacturers, where are their core area of competencies across the globe, but also in the different regions. And some of that is mapping out where the manufacturers are located, right? So we've had a lot of conditions, whether it be the Red Sea, whether it be the bridge in Baltimore, whether it be, the Suez Canal, that have created significant logistic challenges. And so having manufacturers having a foothold in these different regions is beneficial in helping to mitigate risk. So we can back into it two ways, either with regional suppliers or with a global supplier that has that regional footprint, but it is something that's being looked at and measured in a different light, given what we're coming out of.
So do you see organisations wanting to create a consistent global experience, or is there kind of more of a regional flavour opening up?
We're seeing a move towards global. And what that global may look like is it can be the same product throughout the globe, or it can be a product that is equal in quality, equal in aesthetic, or similar in aesthetics, that is from one manufacturer or different regional manufacturers that all check the same box in terms of performance, specs, warranty, all those different criteria, so that at the end of the day, it is equal, right? And it is an elevation in quality across the board. So they are saying, if we have an office in London, if we have an office in Dallas, if we have an office in Mumbai, we want it to be a very similar brand experience, and then how they choose to back into that is very individualized.
So
I think we've seen that with some of the bigger corporations we work with, that there'd be global standards, and then adding some local flavour all helps to make it a natural experience, or not just natural, supportive in some local way of the community, or recognition of the community, the heritage, as another layer, which to me seems a really good thing, to just increase belonging, team buy-in.
And I was going to ask you, Julie, have you noticed that because of CSR being such high on the agenda for so many organizations, that this local dependence is now increasing and will only increase going ahead?
The local dependency can be buying from local manufacturers, but it can also be buying from a global manufacturers that have a high percentage of vertical integration and in-region sourcing. So there's different ways that we can back into that. What's fun about it when you look at it from a data perspective is it's not prescriptive. And at the end of the day, we can research it all sorts of different ways, collect the data, and let the client decide what's of most value to them. But I do think there's a significant uptick in in-region sourcing to varying degrees that has become more valuable.
Even from a sustainability perspective,
Correct,
clearly.
exactly.
And I'm thinking about the whole thought. I'm just moving around a few points here that came in, but the whole point around simplicity. How do we approach it when we're trying to make a space work for everyone? So universal design, if you like. How do we bring simplicity into a space for every user?
I think the key still has to be in the variety, because you can, one size can't fit all.
No.
So I think simplicity in this instance, it has to be, give me my choices. I still have to have a choice. So in order to provide me with a choice, two things have to happen. Either there needs to be variety, or there needs to be hackability. So we've been talking about this for years, the adjustability, the reconfiguration, the simplicity in that aspect, because if I need to walk into a room and I need special tools and a set of IKEA instructions to assemble this cabinetry, it's not going to happen, right? So it has to be pretty idiot-proof. Sorry, that expression might be offensive, but I don't mean it to be. It has to be very easy.
Yeah.
And so I think those choices of variety contribute to the experience of the individual, and also not only are not everybody have the same needs, but I myself can have different needs in the morning, in the midday, or in the afternoon. My day evolves, right? And it changes, and I do different kinds of work. I do highly collaborative work at times, and highly alone focused work at times. So I think the environments need to adjust to that.
Yeah, so that's a high degree of flexibility, really.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So with the concept of open office here expanding, right? We're seeing more and more unassigned seating.
Yeah.
How often are clients moving to go in the direction of hackability? I understand the value of maybe exploring it, but how often is that being selected now, given this increase in?
I think it depends on the client type.
Okay.
So some clients are very comfortable with that. We know the majority of tech companies, for example, are super comfortable. In fact, I think that is what they do. They demand it, in fact, right? But say a professional service firm, maybe not so much.
Right.
But what we're trying to do, there's also a lot of coaching with this. That's the change management, right? I think I'm going to pick a lawyer as an example. It would drive them mad if for this task they need to move here, for that task they need to move there, for this task they need to move here. That would drive them mad. So some people are quite mobile and quite agile, and they with a light laptop and they move about easily throughout the day. I'm one of them. Some of us are like that. But I think what we're trying to also coach people is understanding that there's many things that you could be doing in, say, in an open plan scenario that you can focus in an open plan scenario. And so to the aspect of physicality, and by that I mean your desk, the adjustability, the white noise above me, the lighting, aside from the hackability of my physical environment, we layer in them policy, right? So I think that this is, we gotta teach people to behave, and that there's certain behaviors that are not adequate. Yes. So we have a saying, which is, etiquette or policies combined with choice is what's going to give you those great work modes. Yeah.
Nice. Makes a lot of sense.
No, completely agree. That's how, it won't work any other way. And variety is the only key to having a more universal design space. Because, like Carlos said, it's not just me who has different work profiles, but there are different work profiles that are coming into the same office to do certain things. So you need to be able to cater. And it's not just work profiles. It's now a lot of organizations, fortunately, have been giving a lot of emphasis on inclusivity and diverse needs, and what do people with neurodiversity require, what do people with special needs need. So it is catering to a much larger audience, and the only way you can do it is a huge variety of settings to do different activities. And without layering how people use the space, no space is going to no space is going to work. So our whole concept of selling back to the client is, yes, we'll design a beautiful space, but that space is not going to work for you if your people don't know how to use it. So we need to get them to use it and actually own the behaviors in that space. Because we had a conversation with one of the clients in a focus group, so this was more employee level, on yes, we want these quiet areas, yes, we want to have these phone booths, but what if someone is sitting there the whole day? What can I do? So we're like, no, you're the champion. You can literally go knock at the door and say, hi, my time's up, can you just please make the space available for me? And they were so comfortable with that, because now they realize that they have the power to do that. Because until now, it was just an unsaid rule that no one disturbs me. But now it's like, okay, we're allowed to do this because now these new settings have come in, and it's quite empowering for them to do that.
Without those guide rails, you are going to get that.
Yeah, exactly.
The office just becomes
the
nearest booth.
Exactly.
So leadership, education, change management, listening and showing it.
Absolutely.
These are all very, very key, aren't they?
And testing and piloting.
And the multiplicity of work setting types, I can't get away from that because hackability is all good for some organizations.
Not for all.
Not-
We know of good case studies where great hackability and user edits were designed in and never used. Nothing ever changed, despite the expense of having invested in those hackable settings or items. So we're getting quite a collection of points here, aren't we? Quite a lot of inputs to making it simple.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, and it's not
It's not one size fits all. It's like
Yeah.
you always lead with that, right?
Yeah.
It depends.
the title of the whole presentation is off.
Yeah, but it's, and also, yeah, as we're saying, like an organisation morphs over time.
Yeah, they do.
What worked for it today will
Will
work
not.
in 2 years' time. The set of people that are using the space will be different. But, you know, the location might be used for different things. How many organisations that happened to since pandemic times? Okay, well, look, this is good. We've just got a few minutes left now, so it'd be really helpful just to come around the team and just kind of have some final thoughts.
Mhm.
What do you want to get across? Any thoughts that come to you as we
And you could say on or off topic, couldn't we? Let's harvest
What
anything.
message do you want to leave with the audience? Yeah.
Specific to
This-
furniture or
this
just
is your
open
soapbox,
conversation?
Life
You go in general, exactly.
Go on, Julie, go for it. Do you want to kick off for us?
I think this is a really exciting time for furniture, right? It's the first time that we've seen this shift from, you know, silos to inclusivity and elevation and quality, but also some real excitement and meaningful conversations around sustainability, around diversity, around data that we just haven't experienced before. And so that's really exciting for us to see clients want to learn more and evaluate differently in order to tell a better story that better aligns with their values and brands.
That's great.
No, I think just to echo what Julie said, I think it's like a very good time for us to be in what we're doing, not only because of just new ways of working, but just the fact that there are so many different factors that are influencing decisions now. So also for leadership to realize that the ones making the decisions now may not be leaders anymore. In 4 years' time, there's going to be a completely new cohort that would have taken up those positions because they would have been at a stage when they're going to be leaving the business. So it is bringing these factors as well to the forefront when we're having discussions now, that please keep in mind, like I said, 25% of your population is going to be Gen Z in the next 1.5 years. So who are we actually designing for? So it's the purpose of your organization. It is who your talent is, where it's coming from, where are they going to be working? What are their different needs? Everything as a whole is having so many impacts on what we're discussing today. And so it is just understanding that it's not just a one size fits all, but the whole question is not simple anymore. The problem isn't just let's redesign an office and make it nice. It's about looking at all of these different layers so we can package a whole big nice story. And so it's become so much fun to do what we're doing now because there are just so many things that make an impact.
For me, I think I want to end it with the notion of sustainability and carbon footprint in the entire built work environment. I think we are at the age and at the era of nothing can really be wasteful, and having a much deeper understanding of where it came from, how long will it last, and where will it go after. Is really top of mind for at least for Gensler. It certainly is. We've just finished revamping all our libraries to have a very exhaustive process in which really created that audit to have that utmost understanding of what's happening from a carbon footprint perspective. I think some of our clients are demanding it, the next generations are demanding it, and I think us as an industry need to really contribute to that. That's sort of where my mind's at.
Great. It's not
really summarizing, but I was just thinking one aspect I think we've all agreed on in passing is that this is a journey, it's a continuum. There's not the future of the workplace is not a destination. It is a journey, and it's recognizing the nuances that come in along the way, and the things that are shifting, the different cohorts and age groups. That's a big one. It was in a different connection, but interview the other day on the West Coast, someone pointed out to me that I think it's 10 million Americans are becoming 65 every day. Well, that's huge. It's not so much about workspace, that was about senior living actually, but recognizing all these different factors, which are just steering the journey, aren't they? They're not making it any simpler.
I think that's one underlying message that comes right through this. It's complicated, making it simple, and making sure that simplicity keeps going into the future. It's great. Well, thank you to all three of you. Really appreciate your insights. It's been a very insightful discussion. Thanks to our audience for listening and for putting the questions in. We appreciate that too. So we look forward to seeing you all next time. And that's all for today. Thank you.
Thank you all.